You could pay off your brother's debt, my dad said after demanding I sell my apartment. No, I said simply. 8 months later, they tried to sue me. I 30F have always been the reliable, responsible one in my family. Ever since I can remember, I've been the one who had to grow up fast, make the right choices, and keep things together while my younger brother Adam, 28M, got to do whatever he wanted with zero consequences. I never thought my own birthday would be the day my family would finally show their true colors, but I guess some revelations come when you least expect them. Growing up, the difference in how our parents treated us was glaring. I remember my 10th birthday when my parents canceled my small party at the last minute because Adam had a baseball game. I sat in the bleachers, watching everyone cheer for him while no one remembered it was supposed to be my special day. When I turned 16, I wanted driving lessons, but my parents said they couldn't afford them. 3 months later, Adam got a used car for his 14th birthday just to have it ready when he turned 16. These weren't isolated incidents. This was my entire childhood. When college came around, I worked 3 part-time jobs while maintaining a full scholarship because my parents decided that learning financial responsibility was important for me. Meanwhile, Adam partied through 4 different colleges on our parents' dime, changing majors whenever classes got too stressful for him. He graduated 6 years later with a degree in business management and a stunning collection of stories about spring breaks in Cancun. Despite everything, I managed to build a life for myself. I got a job in marketing right out of college and worked my way up to senior manager at a respected firm. I pinched pennies, lived with 4 roommates in a tiny apartment, and took on freelance projects on weekends. After 8 years of relentless saving, I finally bought my own apartment 3 years ago. Nothing fancy, just a modest 1-bedroom in a decent neighborhood, but it was mine, fully paid off, and I was proud of it. All this time, I still tried to be the good daughter. I sent my parents $1,200 every month to help out with expenses, even though my dad still worked and they somehow always had money for Adam's investments. These investments included a failed sports bar, an app idea that never made it past the concept stage, and most recently, some kind of cryptocurrency trading scheme. Despite these failures, Adam still drove a BMW, took lavish vacations, and lived in a luxury apartment that our parents helped pay for. The only person in my family who ever acknowledged my accomplishments was my Aunt Caroline. She was my mom's sister, but they couldn't be more different. While my mom was always focused on Adam, Aunt Caroline would call me just to check in, send me birthday cards with thoughtful notes, and actually remembered what was happening in my life. She made me feel seen when no one else did. Last month, I received a text from my mom inviting me to a family dinner for my birthday. I was shocked. They usually forgot my birthday entirely or sent a belated generic text a few days later. For once, I thought maybe they're finally seeing me. I even bought a new dress for the occasion, feeling stupidly hopeful that things were changing. When I arrived at my parents' house, something felt off immediately. The decorations consisted of a single store-bought cake with no candles. Adam was conspicuously absent, which was strange since family gatherings always revolved around his schedule. Still, I pushed my concerns aside and tried to enjoy the rare attention from my parents. After an awkward dinner where my parents kept exchanging glances, my dad cleared his throat and put on what I call his business voice, the tone he uses when he's trying to convince someone of something. "Jesse, we're so proud of how responsible you've been," he began. "You've always been our rock, the one we can count on." My mother nodded enthusiastically. "That's why we know you'll help your brother through this rough patch. It's just a temporary setback in his business." The pieces clicked into place. This wasn't a birthday dinner, this was an ambush. They proceeded to explain that Adam had gotten a little over his head with his latest venture. He'd borrowed money from some investors who were now threatening legal action. The amount, just over $200,000. "We've been thinking," my dad continued, avoiding my eyes, "your apartment has appreciated nicely. If you sell it, you could pay off Adam's debt and still have enough for a down payment on something smaller." I sat there, fork halfway to my mouth, unable to process what I was hearing. They wanted me to sell my home, the one thing I'd worked tirelessly for, to bail out Adam, again. "What about Adam's BMW, his luxury apartment, his expensive watches?" I asked, my voice surprisingly steady. My mother waved dismissively. "Those aren't worth enough, and besides, he needs to maintain a certain image for his business contacts." "Family helps family, Jesse," my dad added sternly. "Adam would do it for you." That was when I laughed. I actually laughed out loud because the suggestion was so absurd. Adam had never done anything for me, not once. No, I said simply, I'm not selling my apartment. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 20 degrees. My mother's face contorted with shock, then anger. My father's expression hardened. After all we've done for you, my mother hissed, this is how you repay us. What exactly have you done for me? I asked quietly. I've been sending you money every month for years. I worked through college while you paid Adam's way. I've never asked you for anything. My father stood up, looming over the table. If you can't help your brother when he needs it, you're no longer part of this family. Those words transported me back to when I was 11, sitting at this same table with tears streaming down my face. I had begged them to come to my honor roll ceremony. Mom, please, I worked so hard, I got straight A's. My mother had barely looked up from helping Adam with his science project, the one I wasn't allowed to help with because he needed to learn independence. She'd said, Jesse, stop being so needy, your brother needs me right now. That night, I'd pinned my honor roll certificate to my bedroom wall. No one ever saw it but me. Now, 20 years later, nothing had changed. I wasn't a daughter to them. I was an ATM expected to pay for Adam's mistakes without question. I gathered my purse and stood up. Then I guess I don't have a family anymore. I walked out to my car and sat there, hands shaking so badly I couldn't put the key in the ignition. Tears streamed down my face as I called the one person who had always been there for me, Aunt Caroline. They're showing you who they really are, she said after I recounted what happened. The question is, what are you going to do about it? Something inside me finally snapped. For years, I'd been the family doormat, giving and giving while receiving nothing in return. Not anymore. I developed a 3-part plan. First, I immediately stopped the monthly payments to my parents. I'd been sending that money automatically for so long that I'd stopped even thinking about it. $1,200 that could have been going into my retirement account or emergency fund instead of subsidizing Adam's lifestyle. Second, I blocked my parents and Adam on my phone, email, and all social media. I needed space to think without their manipulation clouding my judgment. Third, I contacted an attorney. A colleague had recently gone through a difficult family situation and recommended her lawyer to me. I wasn't sure what legal protections I might need, but given how entitled my family felt to my assets, I wanted to be prepared. The attorney, Ms. Reynolds, listened to my story with a sympathetic but professional demeanor. She recommended a formal cease and desist letter to establish clear boundaries and documentation if things escalated. She also suggested I install security cameras at my apartment just in case. People show unexpected sides of themselves when money is involved, she warned me. Better to be overprepared than underprepared. Before I blocked my family, my phone had been flooded with messages. My mother alternated between guilt trips, I carried you for 9 months and this is how you treat me, and thinly veiled threats, you'll regret turning your back on family. My father's messages were colder, calling me selfish and ungrateful. Adam's texts were the worst. Grow up and help the family for once, he wrote, as if I hadn't been supporting them for years. You're just bitter because mom and dad love me more. Everyone knows you're the family disappointment. Those words stung because they confirmed what I'd always suspected, that no matter what I achieved, they would never see me as enough. But they also strengthened my resolve. I was done trying to earn the approval of people who would never give it. The next few weeks were a nightmare. My parents somehow got my work schedule and started showing up at my office. I had to explain the situation to my manager, who thankfully was understanding and had security escort them out when they appeared. They began spreading stories to extended family members about how I'd abandoned them in their time of need, turning aunts, uncles, and cousins into flying monkeys who bombarded me with messages about family duty. Adam took it a step further and posted a long rant on social media about his selfish sister who lived in luxury while letting her family suffer. The irony of this accusation coming from someone with a luxury car and designer wardrobe would have been funny if it wasn't so infuriating. The stress affected me physically. I developed anxiety, lost weight, and couldn't sleep, but I refused to give in. It was time to break the cycle. 4 weeks after my birthday dinner, the certified cease and desist letters were delivered to my parents and Adam. Ms. Reynolds had drafted them carefully, detailing the harassment and making it clear that any further contact would result in legal action. She included specific references to the workplace visits and social media defamation, establishing a paper trail. The letters worked, at least temporarily. The barrage of messages stopped. My parents no longer appeared at my workplace. The social media posts were deleted. For the first time in weeks, I could breathe. Aunt Caroline kept me updated on family developments, though I never asked her to. She told me my parents were facing financial difficulties now that my monthly payments had stopped. They were behind on their mortgage and considering downsizing. Adam had been forced to sell his BMW and move to a cheaper apartment. Part of me felt guilty, but a stronger part recognized that I wasn't responsible for their financial decisions. They were adults who had made their choices. 2 months passed. I started therapy to work through the complex emotions of essentially losing my family. I took up photography as a hobby and planned a solo trip to the Grand Canyon, something I'd always wanted to do but had always sacrificed for another family emergency. Slowly, I began to heal. Then one evening, my security camera alerted me to movement at my door. I checked the footage and saw my parents standing there, looking noticeably different. My father had lost weight and my mother's designer clothes had been replaced with simpler attire. They knocked repeatedly, called my name, and eventually left a note that I retrieved once they were gone. The note was a mixture of apology and subtle manipulation. "We miss you and want to make things right. Family should stick together through hard times. Please call us when you're ready to talk." Not a word about respecting my boundaries or acknowledging how they had treated me. Just another attempt to pull me back into the dysfunctional family dynamic. I reported the incident to Ms. Reynolds, who advised me to document it but take no action unless they returned. I doubled down on my self-care routine, focusing on building the life I wanted rather than the one my family tried to force me into. 4 months after the birthday dinner incident, Aunt Caroline called with news. Adam had finally taken a regular job at a local marketing firm, ironically, a competitor of my company. My parents had sold their house and moved into a 2-bedroom condo. They were telling everyone who would listen about their ungrateful daughter who had abandoned them, but fewer people were sympathetic now that the initial shock had worn off. "They're learning that actions have consequences," Aunt Caroline said, something Adam should have learned decades ago. By the 6-month mark, I had transformed. Therapy had given me tools to recognize and counter the manipulation tactics I'd grown up with. I'd made new friends through my photography club, genuine relationships based on mutual respect rather than obligation. I'd even started dating someone who valued my independence and ambition instead of trying to exploit it. The guilt still surfaced occasionally. Decades of conditioning doesn't disappear overnight. But now I recognized those feelings for what they were, the result of calculated manipulation, not genuine wrongdoing on my part. Then came the email from my mother. Somehow she'd gotten hold of my work email address, likely through Adam's connections at his new job. The message was desperate. They were facing eviction, Adam's car had been repossessed, and they had nowhere to turn. Could I find it in my heart to help them one last time? Once, this message would have sent me spiraling into guilt and compliance. Now, I forwarded it to Ms. Reynolds, who added it to the documentation file and sent a stern warning to my mother about circumventing the no-contact order. I felt nothing but pity, not for their situation, they had created that themselves, but for the emptiness of their lives. They had sacrificed a relationship with their daughter on the altar of enabling their son, and now they were facing the consequences of that choice. Last week, I closed on a small vacation cabin in the mountains, a place where I could pursue my photography and find peace. As I settled in, I found myself staring at the last family photo still saved on my phone. It was from 3 Christmases ago, me standing slightly apart while my parents beamed at Adam. I'd kept it as a reminder of what I was trying to fix, a relationship that was broken long before the birthday dinner. I walked to the fireplace, turned on the recording app on my phone, and spoke clearly. "I release you. I release myself from the obligation to fix what you broke. I release myself from the guilt you planted. I release myself from the hope that you'll ever see me." Then I deleted the photo, watching as the pixels disappeared forever. The symbolic weight of that small action left me feeling lighter than I had in years. As I stepped onto the porch to watch the sunset, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. It was Adam. "They're taking the condo. We'll be on the street. This is on you." I blocked the number without responding and turned my attention back to the brilliant orange sky. My brother had spent a lifetime escaping the consequences of his actions. It wasn't my job to rescue him anymore. Some people might think I'm being harsh. Maybe I am, but after 30 years of putting my family's needs before my own, I've learned an important lesson. You can't set yourself on fire to keep others warm, especially when they only notice the warmth, never the burning. I don't know what the future holds. Maybe someday, if my parents show genuine change and respect for my boundaries, we might rebuild some kind of relationship. But it won't be one based on financial exploitation or emotional manipulation. And if that day never comes, I'm at peace with that too. Because for the first time in my life, I'm putting myself first, and it feels like freedom. Life has a strange way of coming full circle. Yesterday, I received a formal letter from a law firm representing my parents. They're claiming that the monthly payments I had been making were actually loans from them to me, which they expect to be repaid with interest. They're asking for over $50,000. I forwarded the letter to Ms. Reynolds, who actually laughed. "They have no documentation, no case, and they're just trying to scare you," she assured me. "This is desperation, plain and simple." She's preparing a response that will shut this down quickly, but it reinforced that I made the right decision cutting ties. There's no low they won't sink to. Meanwhile, I've been promoted at work. My photography was featured in a local gallery, and I've started volunteering at a financial literacy program for young adults. Helping others avoid the manipulation I experienced has been healing in ways I never expected. Aunt Caroline moved closer to me last month, and we have dinner together weekly. She told me that Adam has been telling people I stole his investment money, but no one believes him anymore. His pattern of failure and excuses has become too obvious. As for me, I'm done looking back. My apartment is still mine, my boundaries are stronger than ever, and I've finally learned that sometimes the family you choose is more valuable than the family you're born into. I choose me every single day.